Hi there, and welcome to the Grief and Rebirth podcast. I'm your host, author and trauma survivor Irene Weinberg, here to encourage you wherever you are in your healing journey. In each episode, I chat with incredible grief and trauma specialists, healers, mediums, and celebs, as well as remarkable people who have inspiring healing stories to share. If you're looking for a podcast that's both uplifting and inspiring, you've found it. Let us help you find your joy in life. Hi, everyone. I hope this finds each of you so very well. I'm speaking to you from my studio in West Orange, New Jersey, and I am absolutely delighted to have this opportunity to interview Stacy Francis, who is a certified financial planner, a certified divorce financial analyst, a certified estate and trust specialist, and a certified grief recovery specialist. Early in her childhood, Stacy watched her grandmother, Myra, stay in an abusive marriage because she did not have the skills to effectively deal with money. This insight changed Stacy's life and drove her towards a career in finance, and she became inspired to found her company, Francis Financial. As the president and CEO of Francis Financial, it is Stacy's admirable goal for women in transition through divorce and widowhood to feel confident and comfortable with money in a judgment-free space. She has authored an informational document called a white paper titled Unveiling the Unspoken Truth, the Financial Challenges Women Face Before and After Divorce. And she has also crafted a guide titled Financial Help for Widows, a complete resource guide, which helps women who have lost a spouse to prepare financially. Francis Financial has been honored with prestigious awards and recognitions as a top advisor in the industry, notably for women. Stacy also founded the nonprofit Savvy Ladies, which helps women across the spectrum of ages, life experiences, and income levels. Savvy Ladies empowers them to identify their goals, make proactive choices about their finances, and lead richer, more rewarding lives. I'm looking forward to talking with Stacy, whose office is in New York City, about the ways her grandmother Myra inspired the current trajectory of her life, how the financial decisions a woman makes during her divorce impact her future, the in-depth training Stacy has received that helps her to support clients experiencing and grieving the loss of a loved one, her self-care guide that addresses the physical impact of grief and how to cope with the effects, her resource guide titled Financial Help for Widows, and more for what is surely going to be a compassionate, highly impactful, and wisdom-filled interview. Hey, Stacy, a warm, heartfelt welcome to Grief and Rebirth podcast.
Thank you, Irene. I am blushing. For those of you who can see, I am blushing. Thank you. That was such a beautiful introduction.
My pleasure. I love bringing someone as remarkable as you onto the podcast because I know that you can help so many people in our audience and they can pass it on. It's just so great. So let's start with this question because I want everybody to know what generated who you are today. So could you tell us about your childhood, your relationship with your grandmother Myra, and the ways your grandmother's story inspired the current trajectory of your life?
Thank you, Irene. My grandmother was one of the most important people in my life. My mother and my grandmother were the two most important people to me, and I found myself as a young girl seeing that my grandfather really didn't treat her well. And it actually, as I became older, became more and more apparent that it wasn't just not treating her well, it wasn't just yelling at her, it actually was physically abusing her. And along with that, that is financial abuse. In fact, in 98% of domestic violence situations, there's financial abuse as well. And grandma was one of those women. And so she was literally and also figuratively trapped in a marriage. and never left. She ended up, unfortunately, passing away because of the abuse.
Oh my
And
God.
so, growing up, Irene, as this
Oh,
little girl, and then losing, one of the people who you love most in your life, I had a huge amount of grief, a huge amount of trauma. And it was that inspired me to start to educate myself about finances because Irene, I would have never expected that I was going to be doing this work when I was little. But I will tell you, like you, I am called to this mission. And it is so powerful to be able to help. Primarily, we work with women, but to help them in their times of need of dealing with grief, dealing with trauma so that they can rebuild their life and have financial security because every single person really deserves that. So I created a beautiful charity that we'll talk about later called Savvy Ladies in her memory. We've worked with over 30,000 women who are financially vulnerable pro bono. And the year after I started that charity 21 years ago, I started Francis Financial to pay for it. And so, here we are 2 decades later. It's a great place to be. I couldn't be happier to be a social entrepreneur. I know I'm really making a difference, and it feels really, really good.
feels good to me to have you on to know that because my mother was a battered woman. And my mother also, I can remember begging my mother in my childhood, why don't you leave him? And my mother said,
Right?
"Who's going to put braces on your teeth? Who's going to do this for you? Who's going to do that for you?" And she had much more power than she thought she did. And when you're being battered like that, I understand.
Yeah.
I so identify. That's for a whole other interview as to how you resolve your feelings with your grandfather. But that we'll talk. That's for a whole other. Whoa,
Yeah.
right? So, but
I feel
anyway,
like we need a cocktail for that
that
conversation.
that one, right? Because I had the same issues with my father.
Yeah.
Why do you say that choosing a financial advisor is a gut thing, Francis? Because there's so
Ye-
many people out there.
Yeah, there are, and I have to say, I think what's difficult about choosing a financial advisor is we all look the same. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about, what to look for, how to make sure that you're working with someone who's reputable, that is going to do a good job for you. But the reason why I say it's a gut thing is that you're going to be sharing some of the deepest, most personal information with this person. You have to feel in your very gut that this is someone that you can have those conversations with. In fact, your financial advisor may know more about you than a lot of your even closest friends. They can't do the job that they need to do for you to make sure that you are on the right financial track unless they know everything, your hopes, your dreams, what what you want in the future. And for many women that I work with, they come to us with also feelings of shame, as if I should have known this information, should have been more involved. The shouldas go on,
All the shoulds,
and
all the shoulds.
should have blank, and we can just keep on filling them. And you have to have that wonderful relationship with that advisor. In your gut, this is someone that has your back, is not judging you, and that you can truly be open and honest with. And so the gut piece is important. And I'll tell you, our guts, they tell us if there's something that's kind of not right when you're talking to someone, um, listen to that gut because it's usually right. It doesn't mean that they're a bad person, but maybe they're just not the right person for you.
And my gut is looking at you and feeling how compassionate you are. And I would imagine when you're coming to someone with all of these issues and you're frightened and you're going through all of this, because not only do you want someone smart, but you want someone who can identify heart wise with what you're going through. That's so important. So, and that leads me to the core values shared by you and each member of your team, because I know that you talk about that there are core values. And I think it's important for people to know what they are
Yeah.
and how they help each of your clients.
So we're kind of a unique, special financial advisory firm. Um, I think because I started it on my own, it has become for me, more than just a company and wonderful people that work here. It's really a family, and our clients are also part of our family. And so together, actually, we chose these values. Everybody got a vote on what values they felt most resonated with us and how we serve our clients and how we work together every day. And that's passion for excellence, compassion, communication, integrity, and supportive attention. And this is something that we bring to our work every day with each other, but also with our clients, because our clients are in a place where they really do need that compassion. They do need that supportive attention because they're often going through just some of the most difficult
They're hurting.
situations in their life.
They're,
Very
they're,
much so.
they're dramatically hurting. So that leads me to my next question, because you also say that the most important professionals these hurting people will need on their team are an estate planning attorney, a financial advisor, and a therapist. Ideally, one specializing in grief recovery. Could you tell? Because I don't think everyone, and that's what happened for me. I had a financial advisor, but I also had a therapist, which made a huge difference for me. So, would you like to tell everyone why that kind of combination is important?
Yes, it actually is really important. And it's interesting. I feel like a lot of people um, are surprised about the therapist as that important team member. But I will tell you, it's extremely important. And I'm going to start with that person first, because anyone who is going through a divorce, even if you were the one to initiate that divorce, there is grief, right? And it's grief and it's mourning the loss of the life you thought you were going to have, mourning the loss of the partner who you thought you had married. So many losses. And also for obviously, someone who their spouse has a terminal illness or has passed away, there is the loss of that amazing person in your life, but then often we see secondary, even tertiary, losses as well, because all of a sudden you're 100% responsible for your finances. Not only have you lost your, most loved partner in the world, but you lost your financial advisor, that person who was dealing with the accountant, dealing with the, investment portfolio. And so, putting the proverbial mask that falls from the ceiling on a plane on yourself first is really important. And I do see with a lot of our clients, whether it's a divorce or a death, um, they're very much trying to help others, helping the kids through, helping the kids, helping even friends or family members that they're not often giving themselves that same love of in time and supportive healing. So I think a therapist is a must have for every person. And then of course matching it up with that estate planning attorney with, the loss of a spouse. There are so many details, and it is imperative to have a great attorney to help you through the legal morass of that, so that you can move through that journey as whole as possible with as little stress as well. So that's really important. And if it's a divorce, you want a fantastic matrimonial attorney also. And if anyone wants resources, we work in almost every state across the US, and we know great people that you can work with. Because again, a matrimonial attorney and estate planning attorney, you're going to need to work with a lawyer that's actually pass the bar in your state. So it is going to be more location specific.
That's so wonderful, because they can come to you and give all this knowledge, so that they're not like just Googling, what am I going to do? And
Yes,
you also advise women who are going through divorce to go work with a therapist also?
very much so. Very much so. And I will tell you that those clients that work with either a therapist, a grief coach, a divorce coach, um, I see them navigate that process of divorce in a much healthier way, coming out much more whole at the end. I also see that they have more tools to be able to protect themselves from being triggered by their soon to be ex's spouse behavior, words, and ultimately, if there are children, the children also are in a much better place to recover in a wonderful, healthy way. So I can't say enough about working with coaches or therapists. And I am here in New York City. I will tell you, we all have therapists whether or not we're going through a divorce or a significant loss. And so I can't imagine someone getting through this on their own.
It's horrible. And the other thing I want everyone to know about is you say that the most objective and unbiased financial advisors are fee only advisors who don't get paid in any other way but from the client. So can you educate our
Yeah.
listeners about that also?
Yeah. There are two pieces that are really important, fee only and fiduciary. Fee only means that you would be paying someone an hourly fee, maybe a retainer if you're working with them ongoing. Or for us, if you have a portfolio, then you pay us a small percent from the portfolio based on the value. And when your account goes up, we make more money. When your account goes down, well, we make less money. And the piece that you have to be careful of are those people that make money by selling you things, those that might make money by selling you annuities or mutual funds that have commissions in them. And so just asking again, how do you get paid? Really important. And fiduciary is what it sounds like. That fiduciary has to put your interests ahead of their own no matter what. And that's really important. So when you're interviewing an advisor, too, that's the second question. Are you a fiduciary and are you a fiduciary at all times? And those are the questions that are really important for you to understand. And if anyone wants, I have a fantastic questionnaire that lists out the questions to ask a financial advisor. And I'm happy to share that with you, Irene, as a resource to put in show notes. Because I know that interviewing an advisor, it can be a little overwhelming, right?
Please do share with that for the show notes. Please do. I would, and we'll talk about that, in a little while, later after our interview and get that all those logistics done. But I would love to have that for everyone to be able to source. And I also wanted to ask you to give us an example. You have a story from a woman named Naomi
Hmm.
and your company. I want you to tell everyone how your company helped her because she was contemplating a divorce. So there could be women listening to us today who are thinking, oh, I don't know, and I don't know how to go about this. And the other question I wanted to ask you is you do work with women all across the country, right?
We sure do. So we work with clients all across the country, and I'm, particularly anyone who is going through a difficult time, like a divorce or a death of their spouse, has a piece of my heart, and I am so committed to making sure that they're on financial track and that of all the things they have to worry about, that they don't have to worry about their money. And Naomi is one of these women who came to us. She was in the middle of her divorce process and she had just received a settlement proposal from her spouse. Now, there were significant assets, and because of that, it she didn't really understand everything about the proposal and what that would mean to her moving forward. So what we did is we actually created a beautiful financial plan. If you could think about it as a crystal ball into her future, looking at settlement A proposal that he made versus B to see how would this affect her life. Also, what would be the best assets for her to take? What would be optimal for her financial future as well as the kids? And so we looked at all the different pieces from bank accounts to non retirement investment accounts, tax sensitive accounts such as IRAs and 401ks, as well as the house. And so once she was able to see that, she was able to make a good decision about, do I stay in the house? Do I not stay in the house? Also, knowing that she has the best assets to support her and her future. And she walked away with a really nice number. She walked away with about $2.1 million. And while you say, why was she even worried? We know that in different parts of the country that that money is more than enough than you'll ever need in your lifetime. You could probably, have numerous lifetimes before you would spend that all. But if you're living in a very expensive state, such as California or New York or Boston or some of the other metropolitan cities, and you don't have an income, you haven't been in the workforce for 10, 20, 30 years, well, you have to be very smart with that. And that's what we did for her. So it's fantastic. She's doing great. She has a wonderful paycheck that she gets from her portfolio, and she feels very comfortable, and she has financial peace of mind. And I have to tell you, she's happier than I've ever seen her. So,
Oh, it's wonderful.
yeah,
But
so that's just kind of an example of some work. And for us, it's really exciting. It's almost like,
you sort of give birth to this
yeah,
person's
and it's
life.
almost like putting puzzle pieces together to, and I'll be honest, settlement A did not work for her. And so, looking at, okay, look at settlement B and what needs to happen to make this work. Does child support need to be switched up? What about spousal support, alimony? Is, all these pieces, because ultimately our goal, and this is for every woman listening, when you are doing a financial plan, you want your advisor at least to be planning out to your age 95, at least, and leaving you still with some cushioning, because we all know that things can happen. And for us ladies, the biggest unknown that we have that can be what I call a financial plan buster are medical expenses,
Mm,
right? And so you want to have that cushioning just so that if, God forbid, you do have much higher medical expenses as we get older, we do see that, that you're going to be okay, that you're going to be financially secure.
you know what I'm getting is the wonderful thing about your working with people is you help them from getting unpleasant surprises because you know what's probably up ahead for them that they haven't even contemplated. And the other thing that I love that you do is that not only do you recommend that people see a therapist, but you yourself are a grief recovery specialist. So how does that work in your company? You're sending them to talk to someone, but you yourself have your own expertise about that.
Well, you're very sweet, Irene, to bring that up. I am very proud of that training. When I was taking the coursework with another financial advisor here, they had never met a financial advisor that had committed themselves to that training. And I was shocked by that. We are not coaches, we are not doing coaching, but as a certified grief recovery specialist, having that training and continuing education helps us better serve our clients. Just even being able to sit in a space and allow her to cry, not having to push a tissue towards her because that's not what she wants. That's telling her that you can stop crying now because you're making me feel uncomfortable. It's using the name of her spouse who passed away and being comfortable to continue that and keep his memory alive because she wants to hear it.
You're
It's
absolutely
understanding the woman that goes through divorce, that she did the filing, that she filed, but she can be as just as much pain as the person who wasn't the one who initiated the divorce. And
well,
just
she's grieving the loss of all her fantasies and the loss of all
exactly.
what she hoped for her life and everything, and this is all imploded.
I know, and just, having that understanding, and a lot of people don't think about that aspect of financial advisory, but I will tell you, Irene, what brought me to this field, in addition to never wanting to see another woman go through what my grandmother did, was to be in a helping profession. And at least 50% of the work that we do is around that. That's why one of our core values is communication. That's so important because you can't really do a good job for someone unless you can have that open communication.
It's wonderful. And I also wanted, I know that you have a resource guide titled Financial Help for Widows, and it's divided into three sections.
Yep, it's right
So
here. I've got it for
there
you.
it is. I'm glad you got it
There
for
we go.
everyone. And I want to focus only on the section about a woman building her team of professionals. Now I'm getting from this interview that you have lots of professionals who you know and that you recommend. But I always call it a wagon train. I always used to call it my wagon train. And whenever I was going through something, I had my therapist and my professional or whatever. How do you advise women in your way to build this team? And then I know that, and if you want to talk a little bit about your other two sections, please do.
Yeah, no, and it's a great question. And of the book, I mean, we talk a lot about, what do you need to be doing with your finances during that first year? What are the things that are very important? Um, but really, before you're even, tackling that, you need to make sure you have your team. And I call it Team Whoever. So it might be Team Irene, right? And you've got, everybody on Team Irene, and the people that we would recommend and make introductions to would be, you know grief recovery coaches, therapists, estate planner attorneys in your area. Ideally, we're the right financial planner for you, but sometimes we're not, right? We might not be the right one for someone, and so we know hundreds of certified financial planners across the country. We know hundreds and hundreds of estate planning attorneys, and we also know hundreds of therapists. And so I've spent the last 2 decades really getting to know these people, cultivating, and being able to help our clients. Um, the reason why this is so important is that you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah,
And you're making really important decisions from a financial perspective, from a lifestyle perspective, all these areas that are going to impact you for the rest of your life. And it can be really overwhelming.
very, very. And I'm sure you also help women to, or you intuit, or you help women to figure out who's the right person for them also. Because if they have this whole group of people and they're grieving, they're not into all these discovery calls. So right, am I right about that? So you
Yeah,
talk
and there's
about
yeah,
that.
and there's all different types of grief. There's, grief from having a sudden death of a spouse, grief from, having a long illness of 10 years, grief with, we're working with one woman who has a 6-month old and is very young. Um, there are so many different types of grief, the grief of, unfortunately, losing a child.
Oh,
Unfortunately, death does not discriminate. And so grief is something that, really impacts everyone. And the worst thing is that we typically don't have a heads up about when it's coming. And that can also be sometimes the case with divorce. Sometimes we have no idea of that this isn't going to really work out. And so there can be a lot of surprise with that. So, getting your team in order is really important. If you are even thinking about a divorce, or your spouse has a terminal illness, try to put that team in place before. That is really important, because we know that once you sign the divorce papers to start, or that person passes away, I don't want to swear, but blank hits the fan. We all
oh,
know that,
I've
right?
experienced it too, absolutely. And you also talk about the ways grief affects a widow, especially a widow, but I would think divorce also
Yeah,
emotionally, physically, mentally, and even spiritually.
exactly. I mean, emotionally, there, and I think this is one of the hardest parts of someone going through either of these situations. People who say, "How are you doing?" Well, how
Hmm,
do you think I'm doing?
right,
Instead of, "How are you doing right now?" Right? That's so much more thoughtful to ask, because our emotions are tidal waves, and they change day to day, they change hour to hour, they change minute to minute. And
absolutely.
just recognizing that physically, we also feel grief. And grief shows up in not being able to think as clearly, losing our keys, um, not being able to eat, being able to eat too much, not being able to sleep, wanting to sleep all day. There are so many different ways that it will show up for you. And spiritually, there are some where grief will bring them closer to their spirituality. Others, it actually might propel them away because of anger. How could this happen to me? And so I think the biggest thing that I know, Irene, you've spoken about too, is that you don't do grief one way.
No,
It's different for every single person. And whatever it is for you, that's fine.
right.
And just realize that you're not going to be like your coworker and how they dealt with grief. You're your own person, own unique situation, and own DNA. And so your grief process is also going to be different.
You know what I'm perceiving though, because of the way you help people and encourage people to go, you yourself help them with grief. You encourage them to see a therapist. You get them into these right to the right professionals. They actually come out of their experience more empowered and much wiser to be more prepared for the rest of their lives
Yeah.
when they went into it. And
Yeah.
I know that you're right, and I know that you also provide women with self care tools. You have a self-care guide. You want to talk about a little bit of that? Because here you are helping them that way too, to nurture themselves.
Yeah. Well, that self-care guide is really just, how do you start to take care of yourself again when sometimes we can't even bear to get out of bed. And, we'll talk about, um, you know, do we want to put into your budget seeing a trainer, maybe going to yoga, making sure that they have that in their budget, making sure that they have money if they need to see a nutritionist. And so for us, what we're doing, it's actually really fascinating, is we're just taking all of the support that this person needs. We're translating it into numbers. We're running it through her financial plan. And when she sees that her financial plan works, that's another way that she's able to give herself permission to be able to have those resources, because one of the number one concerns that someone has through divorce and having lost their spouse is, am I going to be okay financially? And I see that, Irene, not only with someone who I heard this from a woman and her husband with life insurance. She's going to have $5 million. And she came to me and said, I feel like I can't spend a penny. She felt so poor. And we all know that $5 million is a very large number, but that's how she felt. And she needed to see her financial plan to be able to give her permission to be able to take herself and do the right things, to be able to go see friends and go out to dinner. And it looked beautiful, which was great. Sometimes when we'll do a financial plan, it's not as beautiful as someone who has $5 million. But the thing that we can always do is there are always different scenarios that we can run to show, well, then, well, what needs to happen if there wasn't a lot of life insurance money, or if there are not a lot of assets to divide in the divorce, what needs to happen to make sure that you're financially secure. And it is extremely empowering. And I will tell you that our clients, you see them 3, 5, 10, 15 years later, and it just makes my heart so happy. They're living a financially confident life.
Wonderful.
It's such it's so empowering to see. It
It's
really
wonderful.
is.
You're doing a great service for people. You really are. And now I'm going to turn to your other great service. Talk to me about this nonprofit, Savvy Ladies. And that's for women who do not have a $5 million pot of gold waiting for them, that even though they don't know quite how to enjoy it yet, but how does Savvy Ladies empower them to identify their goals, make their proactive choices about their finances, and live richer, more rewarding lives when they don't really have a large pot to begin with, right?
Exactly. And Savvy Ladies is my love letter to my grandmother. And with this, we've worked with over 30,000 women, and we
Wow,
offer free financial education for all women. And so I really want to say all women too, because we don't income test. All women can have really, really important questions. A lot of the women who come to us, though, are financially vulnerable. They are in financial need, and they're in often a crisis situation. And so we're able to support them by offering these fantastic webinars and online live events where every financial topic you can imagine is there, from, divorce and finance to how to save for your retirement while balancing saving for your kids' college education. Um, just really fantastic programs. And then we also have 150 self-paced classes that you can take that are also FINRA approved. The best part of it, though, is that you get to work, if you like, one-on-one with a certified financial planner, with a certified divorce financial analyst, with a CPA, whoever it is that you
The
n-
charge?
no charge.
Wow, that's
And
fantastic.
already this year, and so this is now in June 2023. So in the last 6 months from to June, we've matched 1,300 women with financial advisors to work free of charge. And you can do that via phone, via Zoom, whatever works for you. It's typically 1 hour. And it's just the most wonderful service. We have 250 advisors that have given their heart, given their hours of volunteer. And what's great is that these are advisors with all different unique specialties. So when you put your question in, you go to savvyladies.org and you put your question in for the helpline, it's going to go to the advisors that are experts in, let's say, debt management or credit scores or social security questions, because we get a lot of social security questions. Um, and some of the best advisors in the country. So, and again, it's all free of charge. We're a 501(c)(3), and we are really blessed to be able to do all of this work.
But the other thing that you do that's so wonderful is you help people to heal. Everything that you do helps people to heal, which is really at the heart of this podcast.
It's
Um,
it really is about healing, and there are so many headwinds for women. There are so many economic headwinds that we face, and so anything we can do to help women with financial education, with that support, is what Savvy Ladies is all about. It's a fantastic organization.
I would imagine, is that what gives you the greatest joy in what you do? What would Stacy like to say about what brings you?
It's so funny. I feel so blessed. So I'm a mom. I have 2 kids. My son's 17 and 14, and I have an amazing husband, which is interesting as a certified divorce financial analyst. Um, I feel like I'm like have the best husband in the world. We've been together for, like 23 years. So um
Well,
my
you have a
family's not
lovely relationship with all the therapy and everything else. The two of
I
you have
get it's that.
a relationship.
That or Irene, he's afraid of me. I'm not sure. But either way, so really my family is my number one. But also I have to tell you, and you're going to be surprised by this, but Francis Financial and Savvy Ladies both mean the same to me. They both mean the world to me. And the reason why is because I could not have built this charity, Savvy Ladies, without having started Francis Financial. I have been able to pour hundreds of thousands of dollars into this charity because I built this amazing wealth management firm. And so I am so unbelievably grateful for that, because something I learned when I was 26 very quickly when I started the charity, you can only do as much good work as actually the amount of money you have. That was such an eye opener for me. And it didn't matter how passionate I was about this cause and how important this cause of helping financially vulnerable women is. No one was going to write me a check. Now we get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in grants and sponsorships and donations, but it's because we had to build a track record of several decades. And so I feel so blessed for where we are, because I know that it could not have happened without this amazing company called Francis Financial, that we give big. We give a lot of money to Savvy Ladies, but that's who we are. And actually it's interesting because if you go to the Francis Financial website, you're going to see that every person who works here, and there's 18 of us, if you can believe, and we're almost all women, 2 men,
I
and
love
then
that, by the way. And those are
I
two
know,
very,
and
very,
16 women.
men. Yeah.
But we all have a personal story
Wow.
of like what drives us to do this work. And I think that's why we've been able to attract such really great people who really believe in our values and believe in this work. But both Francis Financial and Savvy Ladies are so important to me, and I just feel so lucky to like live this life.
You
I
know what? Your
really do.
grandmother suffered, but she also blessed you, and I'm sure she is with you every step of this way.
She is, and I will tell you, Irene, I feel her all the time. I have a special dress that she left to me. And whenever I do something really in honor of Savvy Ladies, so I was speaking on Capitol Hill at the International Widows Day, talking about the financial challenges women face as widows. I channel her and I wear that dress. And she also left me some really beautiful jewelry that, again, I wear when it's, whether it's our gala or I was just in front of a really large foundation asking for a grant 2 weeks ago. So she's here with us. She's
That's
here with us.
I have no doubt about it. I have no doubt about it.
Yeah.
No doubt. You know, Stacy, you provide women going through difficult transitions in their lives. What I really love about what you do is you provide them with a judgment-free space in which you prioritize compassion and kindness. And you help them to feel confident and comfortable with money by educating them and empowering them. This is a true blessing. I want to thank you for helping women to live their life to the fullest. And thank you from my heart for this compassionate, highly impactful, and wisdom filled interview. And and here's a loving reminder, everyone, that you can see the show notes and all Grief and Rebirth podcast episodes on ireneweinberg.com. And make sure to follow us and like us on social at Irene S. Weinberg on Instagram, Facebook, wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. As I like to say, to be continued. Many thanks, Stacy. Many blessings. And bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.